You're going to hold that mic up to your mouth, otherwise it doesn't do anything.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So yes, in any case, I'm John Spica with the Lake Area Planning Council. It's a joint powers association between the two cities and the county. And it's, as I said, it's a regional transportation planning. So what we do is work with Caltrans and the local communities to get funding and projects and dollars to the locals for transportation projects. In any case, this particular project, as you're aware, is this Highway 20 traffic calming project that is based in the communities of Clear Lake Oaks, Glen Haven, Lucerne, and Nice. And we have hired on some consultants, W-Trans, who are here tonight to answer questions on the project, take as many comments as we can on some of the maps as some of you have already seen, and provide a presentation at 7 o'clock. We are going to hold off until 7 o'clock for the actual presentation, as it was publicly noticed for 7 o'clock, and there's certain legal reasons why we cannot do it early. So in any case, Mr. Steve Weinberger is from W-Trans and can help answer some questions.
Okay. Thanks. Since we can't start the presentation until 7, can you hear me without this? Is that okay?
No.
All right. We are going to kind of talk to you a little bit about the project and what's going to come next, and then take your questions. And then at 7, we can officially start the presentation. So I'm Steve Weinberger, a principal with W-Trans. Barry Bergman is here with me today and our staff. We've been, as John said, retained by the Lake Area Planning Council to do this traffic calming plan for Highway 20. I put up on the screen our schedule. Here we are. I guess I have to face here. We have 3 workshops that we are doing. The first tonight, and then we're going to be coming back with some alternatives to get your reaction to in September. And then we are going to be making our final recommendations, which we'll present in December. And then early in 2020, we'll be finalizing the report that'll be presented to the Planning Council board. So it is a long process. One of the things that we hope to get out of these workshops, and we're going to talk to you at the end of the presentation, there's a website that we've set up that you can go on, and I think the local news will also show the link to that. It's basically a map online that you can all go and leave your comments for us. And the more comments we get, the better, because we're looking at not only just data and our observations, but we're also relying on you, because projects like this, where we're making recommendations, things cost money, and then the county will then go out and compete against other projects across the state to get funding to build those things. And the projects that have the most need and the most public input are the ones that get funded. So the more input we can get from the public that there are problems that we've heard about tonight already, the more you can write things down on that website, write things down on the map. That's just more things we can document in our report, that we have heard from the public. These are problems that we're hearing about again and again and again. Then that's part of the way to justify our recommendations. There is technical issues that we review to make recommendations, but also your input. So is there any questions about the process and the timeline while we're here? Yes.
Just a clarification of what the subject is. Is it just Highway 20, or is it our surface streets and our avenues?
Format. Okay, so what our charge is the communities of East Lucerne, Glen Haven, and Clear Lake Oaks, And basically you've seen these maps, and there's a yellow line. That is the study area that we've been asked to address. And Barry's going to put them up on the screen. It's the same study area that around 2006 or so, there was a beautification plan done. We were actually on, we weren't the lead, but we were on that team that worked on that. Not me personally, but our firm worked on that. We were a sub to the designer that did, and that the result of that was the parks that went in. There was a lot of elements to that plan that were never built, like there was some roundabouts shown as gateways into the communities.
See, why was Upper Lake left out?
I think that, why was Upper Lake left out? John, do you want to address that?
The reason, I think some of this is speculative because I wasn't here in 2006 either, but a good part of this project is to update the 2006 project. I think the main thrust to study these particular communities is that the main street of these communities is the highway, and that's separating the lake from the actual community. And that's why the main focus on these lake shore communities as opposed to Upper Lake that was a little bit out of that range of the main
Upper
street.
Lake is part of Highway 20 now.
Yes.
That's correct, but the actual downtown Main Street area is actually a county road off of the highway.
Then you're just doing a part of Highway 20.
Correct. Again, I wasn't here for the original one, but this being an update of the original one and including Glenhaven, I think the main thrust was because of the main, the center of the community was through there.
Why wasn't Highway 20 all the way to the turnaround in Upper Lake included?
Then unfortunately, I don't have a good enough answer for that.
Thank you. Actually, one thing I would add about this, Steve talked about 4 different communities. The portion of Route 20 that is in there, it's not the entire stretch, it's just the portion of Highway 20 in those communities. So the part that is connecting between them is not included in the study
It goes
area.
from Clear Lake all the way to the...
Right, and we're looking at the section that you'll see on the maps, that you'll see on there, the section of 20 that is within the main, the most densely developed part of Lucerne and of each of the other communities. The parts
Clear. Oh,
clearly
yeah.
focused.
Yeah, you don't include the last step. It's just Upper Lake.
Correct. All I can say to what John said, I don't really have a better answer for that, unfortunately.
Any other questions about the study area? Yeah, yes.
I understand this is a calming of traffic. Does it also include safety issues that we're concerned about? Like pedestrian alerts?
Yeah, so you'll see, we'll be talking, we're not just talking about vehicle traffic, we're talking about pedestrians, bicyclists, people taking transit, and it is, frankly, from my point of view, largely safety-based issues, and things that create safety issues like speeding. You'll hear me say during the presentation that from a traffic volume standpoint, there's not a capacity issue. The number of lanes that you have out on Highway 20 now is appropriate for the volume of traffic. From a technical traffic engineering standpoint, I can tell you that I'm looking at the volumes, the lanes that are there. If I had to recommend what lanes there be, you have the lanes that are appropriate for the volume. It's not a congestion, issue. It's more of a, I think, speeding and safety issue. Would everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just not clear. I'm slow sometimes.
Okay.
On what part of this is Caltrans responsible? You're talking about the highway all the time. And what part are you depending on grants for what that Caltrans is not responsible for?
Well, in the end, since this is a state highway, our entire study area is a state highway, in the end, Caltrans is ultimately responsible for implementing anything we recommend. We can recommend something, this is a big caution, it doesn't mean Caltrans is going to implement it.
What do you need grants for?
The grants are for acquiring money to build those improvements, because Caltrans doesn't necessarily have in there, they have a budget program, the STIP it's called, where they budget money 5 years out. They have not funded any improvements on Highway 20 as part of this program. So we're going to make recommendations to try to gather funds and win some grants to build these improvements. Or if not, and Caltrans can put them in the STIP, they're just going to take longer to build.
This, everybody else understands it, I still don't understand what you're saying. Caltrans is responsible for these things. Once they've got cameras up, they see the evidence, they see what needs to be done, they'll do it. But they have to be persuaded. And they don't get grants to do that. The government and the state pays for that.
I mean, Caltrans, it depends on what it is. If it's something like putting a sign up or changing a striping, that's something that Caltrans maintenance can go out and do. But if it's something more substantial, more costly, it's going to take longer. The Caltrans is ultimately the responsible to go out and do that if they agree that that's what's going to be done. But it's a large project. They don't have funding and can't do it on the short term. It's just going to take longer to go out and do it.
Forgive me, that is from the spot. I appreciate the answers.
Any questions? 4 more minutes, we can start.
Is there any way you can recommend that some of the studies be done up the lake like they're asking? Because I think that's the confusion, is they're talking about safety, crosswalks, and those type of words are pretty, like, I think for the upper lake folks, they're hearing that, and they see there's spots where people cross across the highway, and there's safety hazards. And so when you're saying we're trying to find these actual safe places, and I understand you're using the yellow road as an example on these maps, but I think for them, if I'm hearing from their spectrum that they're hearing the safety and the crosswalks. And so if you could recommend something be done in that area, it would help as well. I think that's kind of.
Okay, we'll talk that over with John, and we can always make some recommendations for further study in the Upper Lake area. So, actually, in the last couple of minutes we have, I want to go to the end of the presentation, and we'll just show them. Folks can leave early. We're going to show you just in case you need to leave early, the link to the website that we've set up. Whoops. Right there, yeah, okay, put it on presentation mode. Okay, so what you're seeing, and you see at the bottom left corner, the HTTPS, that's the link. So we've set this website up where you can go on to the maps, and you'll see at the top right, there's links to providing comments, describing a location, or if there's like a photo that you've taken, you can upload a photo of, here's the problem I'm talking about. Okay, and there's little dialogue boxes where you can type whatever you want, and we'll get all this information of all these locations where you see problems. This is what's going to be, the link to this will be shown in the newspaper, and if you can send this to friends, then again, the more people go on this and list issues, the better.
Yeah. There you
It's,
go. Thank you.
just-
Okay, that was good.
Got it. There.
So Steve, if you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and start. Thank you. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, especially in this weather, not fun. But I'd ask everybody to please stand so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to go ahead and call roll call. Danny Permis. Present. And Kevin Wasik.
Present.
And Lonnie Urquiza, I am here. Kurt is absent. Excused absence. And approval of the minutes?
So we're still working on collecting some of the older minutes.
Has anybody got any changes or suggestions for the minutes that have been posted from the last meeting? They're on the website. They're happening. So that's it. Unless you guys have any changes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Can't vote. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public input, up to 3 minutes per citizen to provide input on any item not on the agenda, but is within the council's jurisdiction. The council chair can extend the time to accommodate the topic if needed, but cannot discuss it until it is noted on a future agenda. So anybody in the audience, would you like to speak for 3 minutes? I will bring you the mic.
Thank you, Council and fellow Lake County residents. This mic is a little spotty. I think everyone knows that. So I'm going to kind of turn around. My name is Margaret Sanders, and I'm on the Worth Ford up in Upper Lake. And we don't mean to take over your meeting, but we want to let you know what we found out and what we're doing about Highway 20, if I could. Highway 20, as we've discerned, and I think we're all in agreement, there is a safety issue and a speed issue. I think, nodding your head, I think we all know that. We have had Dave Morgan, who is in charge of safety with Caltran, at our Worth meetings, and we've heard all the reasons why not, and we decided to ask him, how can we work with you to achieve our objectives? He was also a guest in my home with his team as well, the safety officers. That really, he holds the purse strings to the safety issues that we think. And our community up in Upper Lake had made strong points on speed and how do we control that. And we learned their formula. And their formula doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of us. We kind of laughed when we heard it, maybe you would too, and I know you've probably heard it. So what we've done in Upper Lake, as you know, we've done a few things in Upper Lake. One of them is our sidebar is it's just not working, I don't know why. Is my voice loud enough for everybody?
Yes.
Thank you. We have an Upper Lake patrol that helps with our crime, and we've taken a little bit of a bite out of crime and reminded those people who would seek to commit crime in our neighborhoods to go away. So our community, we've decided we'd like to make Highway 20 safer from a speed standpoint. So some of our community will be driving up and down Highway 20, slowing them down. Now, where did we get that idea? From Mr. Dave Morgan himself. He left a few hints. He said if you'd all slow down when we come out and do our study, then you're going to perhaps fall in that place where everyone's driving slower, and then we can post slower speed limits based on our study. So I'm here just to let y'all know what we're doing. And if you like that, seek me out. I'm going to be around for a while. Was there anything else, Gene? Survey. The survey that's going to EJ. I don't know enough about that to share it all with you, but
The accidents.
Reporting accidents. That's another pertinent piece of information. I had documented 42 accidents on Highway 20, presented them to Dave Morgan. He said, Margaret, I haven't heard of any of these. because we have some really nice police officers and law enforcement and our CHP that says, well, no harm, no foul. I don't want your insurance to go up. I won't report it. The law of unintended consequences is Caltrans does not have that data for safety purposes. So as a community, and if you see an accident and it's safe for you to pull over, just find out or call. Call our sheriff, call your police, call Caltrans and say, hey, I saw an accident on Highway 20, was that reported to Caltrans? Or take a picture of it. I have firsthand experience with that. Someone crashed, took out 5 of my trees, CHP and Sheriff Department thought that was Caltrans trees, they were mine, did cause property damage, and then they were letting the person go. I said, oh no. The law of unintended consequences, again, does not work to our safety because we don't have the critical mass. You kind of probably heard that in our populations to make a difference. Our highways are big enough. Highway 20 is big enough, but people are going too fast. So that's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Or have a question?
I just missed the part. Who do we report it to if we capture an accident on the highway?
I'm sorry.
Who do we report it to? Is it the highway patrol, Caltrans?
Make sure that whatever law enforcement is there, that they're informing Caltrans. They must report it. They must.
Yeah.
As an unintended consequence.
Okay, anybody else? We can get into our presentation. Steve? Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me at this volume? Is that okay? Can you hear me? Or is it?
Yeah, we're fine.
Because, all right, or is that better?
Much better.
All right. I will try to bear with the spottiness then. Okay, so we're going to go into our presentation. I've given you a little introductory comments already. Steve Weinberger with Debitrans. So the emphasis on our study is sort of traffic calming, and this is a state highway, but it's also your main streets in each of these communities. And that's the way we're going to deal with them, is not as a highway, but as a main street and the type of activity that happens in the main street, pedestrian activity, bike activity, people getting on and off buses. This is the purpose of our project, of our work, is to come up with some long-term goals to redesign Highway 20, evaluate the needs of users of the highway. We're not just talking about vehicles, but again, those on foot and on bikes in the 4 communities that we talked about. And developing a list of projects, of modifications to the road, modifications to crosswalks. And then we're going to develop some what are called concept plans that will be part of our final report that will be sent off eventually to Caltrans for them to hopefully implement. Okay. The schedule we talked about, we'll be back next in September. That will be everybody that put their name and email on the sign-in sheet. You'll get an email of when that's going to happen. And also you found out about the method you found out about it tonight. You'll also hear about it, but it'll be likely mid-September after schools are back in. We'll be back showing some actual alternatives that we'd like to consider for the study area. Okay. We have these maps, okay, and I'm going to circle back to these maps in a little bit, but you've seen them. Nice, next one, Lucerne, you can see the parks shown in green, Glen Haven. We've listed places like the post office and Clear Lake Oaks. These are the focus of our work on this project. Okay. There's been some other studies done over the years. We've been talking a little bit about that traffic calming and beautification plan from 2005. We do have those recommendations in hand. All the parks that got built were a result of that study. Although the funding mechanism redevelopment has gone away years ago that funded those projects. There's a number of the highway improvements though haven't happened. So we're going to be revisiting those and potentially maybe still including those in this plan. I wanted to mention the last item. It's sort of known as the Lake Walk Study. There's a pedestrian facilities study going on right now all over Lake County. There might be some confusion. It is not the same study as this. It's a separate effort that is frankly more general. We'll get a little more detail than that, but that effort is going to come up with 10 pedestrian projects in the North Shore communities. Okay, and those are going to be coming out shortly. So we're actually going to take those, incorporate them as part of our plan, and probably provide a little bit more detail, and then go beyond those. We're not going to limit our study just to those 10 improvements. So it is a separate effort that is really on a countywide basis. We're just focusing on the North Shore. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go through some data. We've collected some data. We've made some observations. I'm going to be talking about traffic volumes, the speed surveys we did. We've evaluated some collision history. I'm going to be talking briefly about the facilities you have and what sort of shortcomings we see. Next. Okay, so traffic volumes. All the data I keep organized: Nice, Lucerne, Glen Haven, Clear Lake Oaks. In that order, if you focus on the far right, there's about 11,600 vehicles a day total in Nice. And you'll see 9,000 or so in Lucerne, 6,700 in Glen Haven is the lowest volume. Clear Lake Oaks is about 8,300. That may seem like a lot of vehicle traffic to you. To me, it tells me it's really it's a moderate volume of traffic for a road like a state route. Okay, and in my mind, we've gone through evaluation, the lanes that you have on Highway 20 are appropriate for this level of vehicle traffic. But this is how much vehicle traffic you have right now on State Route 20. And we have these graphs. Barry will kind of roll through each of the 4 of them for the communities. This shows you sort of in each direction how this is generally when I look at these, you usually have a peak in the morning and then a peak in the afternoon. What's different here is there's not 2 peaks, which is typical of most areas. Traffic builds up through the day, kind of peaks in around 3-4 o'clock, and then tails off. It's a little unusual in that it doesn't have like a school obvious peak. Usually you see 2 peaks throughout the day.
Most of us are not awake when you.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, okay, we did some speed surveys in each of the 4 communities. So, so you know, 85th percentile speed, you should know what that term means, because that's the speed at which 85% of the traffic that's surveyed is traveling at or below. And why that is important is because that's how the state of California sets speed limits in order to radar enforce. That's a California Vehicle Code requirement. If a city or the state is going to go out and radar enforce a road, they have to do a speed survey and they have to set the speed limit at the 85th percentile. That's probably why we had a little discussion here before we got started of part of the problem. But that's the way that speed law works, and there is ways to overcome that. So we're not, we have to use that process. So just given that, know that in Nice we measured an 85th percentile speed, and all these speed surveys were done not at the entry or exits to each of your 4 communities, but in the core area where there's a lot of pedestrian activity. So we measured an 85th percentile speed of 51 miles an hour in Nice. And you have a speed limit of 40. So it's 85% of the traffic is traveling at least 11 miles above the speed limit. Does everybody agree with that?
No, I don't like it.
Well, no, I mean, do you think that's accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I agree, that is enormous.
That could mean that people are actually going faster than that too.
Right, 85% of the traffic that we surveyed is traveling at or below 51. So we have another 15% that are traveling higher than 51. But an 85th percentile speed of 51 on a main street is extremely high, yeah. In Lucerne, for some reason, and I'd be happy to go back and maybe resurvey, we surveyed 35, the same as the speed limit, and that could have been the location we did was maybe one of the slower parts in town. You see in Glen Haven, we were about 4 miles an hour above that speed limit for the 85th, and we were about 3 miles above that for Clear Lake Oaks. So obviously, the data supports your comments that there's too high speeds through here. Okay, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Nobody ever gives me an applause for it, but I'll take it. Okay, we did look at sort of the accident history, and we have maps. These are a little washed out, but these will be in the report. I think what might be more interesting to you is the red triangles are pedestrian accidents, and we did go back 10 years. Well, this is just the Nice accidents, and we did have, there was some bike accidents and pet accidents. Okay, and next, I'm going to give you a summary of what these mean, but right now there are a bunch of maps on the dots. You can see Lucerne, okay, Glen Haven, we didn't have any accidents, and then Clear Lake Oaks. Again, we had several pedestrian accidents spread out. We go to the next slide. Right. So there was a number of improvements that went in Clear Lake Oaks, sidewalks and the lighting and such. That's happened within this period. So we have to consider that there may not be as much of a safety issue as there has been in the past because of those improvements. So I'm not going to get into specifically what these numbers mean, but we can calculate a collision rate for a road segment based on the amount of volume there is, and the state publishes what they generally expect the rate to be, and we compare it with that. And what that means is in Nice, the amount of collisions that are happening is actually close to, slightly below what is generally experienced on roads like that in California. Although, look at Lucerne. Lucerne has a rate that is much higher than average for a road like that in California. Okay, that's a red flag to me, especially in Lucerne. We didn't have any collisions recorded in Glen Haven. That doesn't mean there's not a problem. This is reported accidents. We just, and we're going to circle back and make sure we didn't miss anything, but we didn't have any reported accidents show up in Glen Haven. And then again, you'll see in Clear Lake Oaks, we have a collision rate that again is much higher than the statewide average, but again, considering there has been some improvements that have happened in the last 5 years, that it may be actually better than these rates shown. Question?
Why is the average for the statewide higher for Glen Haven, 1.32 versus everything else is 1.16? Is that a typo? Or
No, it's not a typo. The average rate we look at, they give for 2-lane roads, for 3-lane roads, because Glen Haven is only 2 lanes. All the others are 3. That's why they're all the same in Glen Haven. So in California, like a 2-lane road for a volume like this, in the setting that it is, has people, you expect a little bit more accidents because you have no turn lane, right? Somebody's making a left and gets rear-ended, so you expect a little more activity like that. Okay, so we have some red flags on collisions. Circling back to the maps, we put some red lines on here, which is sidewalks. Obviously not many, you don't have many sidewalks in Nice. They put some in front of the park, and that's something that we would likely recommend as part of the study is, you want to serve the pedestrian traffic, for ADA, we want to get some sidewalks in. So it's noted that there's very few sidewalks in Nice, no bike lanes. You do have several transit bus stops, and we're actually going to be getting bus boardings and people getting off buses, how many happen per hour from the transit system, which is going to be helpful. Okay, next one, Lucerne. Okay, Lucerne, you'll see the focus on the red line. You do have, continuous sidewalks on the north side here, very few on the south side, just near the parks. Does there need to be continuous sidewalks on both sides throughout the town? We want to hear from you on that website at the end. Like, I want to see sidewalks here, because then we can recommend it. Question?
Does it take into consideration the condition of the sidewalks?
Good point. It does not. This is just where there are sidewalks, and obviously there's a variety of conditions. Some are new, some are really old, some are narrow. So when we get into recommendations, we'll be evaluating the type of sidewalk and its condition. So thank you for that comment. I wanted to just point out the number of marked crosswalks. We are going to be evaluating, making recommendations for all the marked crosswalks. Obviously, we have quite a number in Lucerne. Next, Glen Haven. Again, no sidewalks, no bike lanes, no crosswalks. We do have the post office, and we know that people are parking and walking across the street to the post office, right? And then in Clear Lake Oaks, you'll see the red line, but also there's a blue line in there, because you do have bike lanes that are marked in Clear Lake Oaks. It starts where those red lines starts and continues and then ends. We've got quite a number of bus stops. We got the bike lanes. We have quite a number of sidewalks, so there is some gaps. And here's where all the crosswalks are. We're particularly concerned about some on the left lower side, which I'll show in a second. Okay, so there's a number of photos and things that we look at. We're going to be looking at all here we'll start Nice, all the crosswalks. We see lots of crosswalks marked with no sidewalks on the side for people to receive them. Right, no lights. Go back a second. And maybe some parking going on in the area. We have no flashing lights right now at the crosswalks in there. We do have sidewalks that have been installed at the park areas. Next. And again, we'll be looking at where the speed limits change in the community. But again, you have 3 lanes with fairly good shoulders in the communities, and except for Glen Haven, which just has the 2. Okay, and then we're looking at the bus stops and sort of the range of facilities. And here in Nice, you've got a shelter and some stops, and look to the far right where you just have a bench. So we'll be inventorying all the bus stops and what type of facilities are there. How much activity is happening? Does there need to be shelters at other locations? Okay, in Lucerne, you do have some lighting going on the left, but you have sidewalks that just end. Is there a need for people to continue walking down that street? You have some older sidewalks that are a little narrow, but they're nicely separated from the road with some grass. Maybe some landscaping or trees might be helpful even more to slow down traffic. Again, in some areas, a lot of pavement. We see this as crosswalk ending, a lot of pavement in an area that is probably generating higher speed because there's not a lot of friction for the drivers that are coming through. Some crosswalk, not all the crosswalks have crosswalk
Okay.
Question on the last speaker. Your 85 percentile loss saying they're doing 50 wide and a 40 in the east, therefore you're going to raise the speed limit. Doesn't that say they should do more speed enforcement? To bring it
Oh, sure. Yeah, the speeding issue is one, it's not a simple solution, but it's a combination of things. I've been on projects where we want to bring speeds down. It's a combination of, well, the local agency needs to enforce the speed. We need to look at, is there things that can be done, not just with signage, but with striping, with narrowing, with landscaping. We're going to go through some of those strategies now. You combine all those things to hopefully bring speeds down, and then you can resurvey the street, the traffic, and maybe lower the speed limit then, and in radar enforce. But it's a combination of things. Yes.
On your surveys for accidents, did you mention pedestrians?
I did.
You did, and so does that show a high incident rate for pedestrians?
Those rates I was showing was actually all collisions, but there actually is not publicized rates for a number of pedestrian collisions, but there's some, we'll be addressing that in the report.
Well, the other one is bicycles. We don't have much connectivity between the towns, but there's people who want to be able to connect through the towns. And that's pretty big here, because we do have around the lake bicyclists. And so when you get over on this north side, it's kind of hard to get through the connectivity.
Okay, that's a really good point, and we'll note that.
Well, I'll send you a bunch of stuff on your site too, because I've been making observations for some time. But those are two key things. The pedestrian safety here is pretty bad from our standpoint, and at night. Night pedestrian safety is a big thing, and if we had some warning signs telling people just to wear white, that would be good as well.
I've been hearing a lot about lighting.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? How can we include Upper Lake in the study? Or is that too late? I mean, they're part of Highway 20.
They're not, I suppose technically they're not part of lake, shore, whatever.
We'll believe that.
I wasn't clear about that.
It would, at this point, it would have to be a separate study because this one's already been funded with the specific scope of these four communities. use.
Okay, so that was something that, like you were saying, that was started before. That had
Yeah, I
started
mean,
before.
it is a little bit of a continuation of the project that was done, or a study that was done in 2006, and this is sort of an update of that, including the community of Glen Haven in this case. But again, the focus was on the main streets that go through the community. That, you know, that's the best that I could gather why they chose those three or four in the first place that could handle it.
I was just curious about that, you know, how we can, go ahead.
I think that, Steve, thank you, you answered my question. This is, in your thought, is mainly beautification of Highway 20, with light things and parks and bus stops and sidewalks and things of that sort. Ancillary to that, you kind of consider the traffic, of course, but that's not your main thrust. The main thrust is what county pays for. Caltrans takes care of the highway itself. Things like signs and left turn lanes that are too long, things like that, which we're interested in. So I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, sorry, question?
I just want to ask you about the crosswalks and the speed. You pointed out that the speeds in Lucerne correlate pretty well with the expected speed, the advertised speed. And yet we also have preponderance of crosswalks. Is there a correlation there?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know, but you know, we'll go back to that. I'm curious to know. I was going to look and see where we did the speed surveys there and why they were lower, but yet we have a higher collision rate there.
Well, at Forest Gale Park with a
Yeah.
multitude of crosswalks, and that, I was wondering if that may be the cause.
Yes, in those collisions, we're probably going to go back through to look at, you know, some. We're not doing, if we were doing a safety, you know, a really intense safety study, we would do a lot of work on the causes. So, but we can do sort of a computer search for the, you know, see what the main causes of accidents were.
And will we have access to that information on the website as well? Or?
It'll be in the report.
Okay.
I'd like to say that when you do your speed survey, having lived on Highway 20, it makes a difference dependent upon the season. In the summer, people travel much faster than they do in the winter. Just my observation.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I think seasonality is certainly a big issue in this kind of a community, so it's good to keep that in mind. So I'm just going to follow up on what Steve was talking about. I think what I'm going to show you are some examples of things that have been done in various other communities. They may or may not be appropriate for here, but we wanted to at least give you a sense of the kinds of ways that to think about some of these issues. You know, ultimately what maybe works in Nice doesn't work in Lucerne, and so it's very context dependent, and also a lot of these things tend to be done with multiple things that you use at the same time. It's not one or the other or the other, and so we'll show you some examples. You can see maybe how some of those pieces start to fit together and what might be something that you think, hey, that's the kind of issue we face here. We want to at least look at whether that's appropriate. So talk about something, the term is complete streets. So we're looking at how all users of a highway can benefit. So like Steve was saying, we're looking at pedestrians, we're looking at bicyclists, we're looking at vehicles, we're looking at safety. It's how all of that fits together. And also people of all abilities, so people who are disabled as well as children, and we want to make sure that all people to the degree we can feel comfortable using the streets. Just to give you a sense of, you know, speed, obviously is something everyone brought up, and here are some numbers I think they're pretty compelling. If you look at a person who is hit by a vehicle moving at 20 miles an hour, 90% of the pedestrians survive the collision. If it's at 40 miles an hour, only 1 out of 10. So what sounds like, it certainly sounds like a difference, but it's even really more dramatic when you see those kinds of numbers attached to it. Just the impact of when someone is driving, just how well they can see what they're looking at. And as you go faster, your field of vision narrows and you're actually able to pick up less information. So it's harder to avoid collisions when you're driving faster. So there are plenty of good reasons to slow down.
Yes, sir.
This also, as I was saying, so different things can be used in different places. Here you've got a speed sign. You can see where the sidewalk starts and where the trees start. But just the kind of range of things, if you go to the next. So you can see there's street trees there, there's the lighting, where the curb and the sidewalk begins, and then the shoulder narrows down. So a lot of these things, they visually change the street for drivers as they're going through, and there's, you kind of get to think like a psychologist. How are people thinking as they're driving? And you know, I was just saying to someone, there's a road that I know, 4 lanes, park lanes on both sides. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's really hard to go that slow. You know, when you narrow the street down, it psychologically just changes the way you think about it. Health benefits are something that have been talked about increasingly as part of transportation. When you have with those very high obesity rates, we have safe places for people to bike and walk. It's just a way for them to be more physically active. Just some numbers about how people do actually walk when they have safe places to do that. And just something about biking. I mean, certainly a lot more people generally walk than bike to get from place to place. But some studies have shown that when they look at, well, what makes people want to bike or willing to bike, what they found is that about 60% of the people say they have an interest in biking if they felt safe. Yeah. And what that usually means is they want to have some protection from traffic. There's some people who are out there, you know, really comfortable riding in traffic, but that's not where most people are coming from. So now I just want to run through a few examples of some of the different kinds of treatments that work. I think some of you've already got here, but again, some things you may want to think about. Now, we have a number of places, and some, you know, Lucerne has more sidewalks than some of the other communities. The others have shoulders, and here you've got a lot of pedestrians using the shoulder, and then when you get them there's not a lot of protection from traffic, and so you want to kind of beef up the accommodations and provide a little more protection. Here's an example. Curb and gutter are not always appropriate. They work well in urbanized areas, but it's a pretty expensive solution. Here's the way you can go back to colorizing the shoulder. It visually narrows the roadway. It provides some way to designate where pedestrians should be. The width of the sidewalks, so I mentioned the quality of the sidewalks before. This is a 4-foot sidewalk. Sidewalks are typically at least 5 feet. In commercial areas, they're wider than that. That generally allows 2 people in wheelchairs to pass each other safely. And there's different ways to provide that separation and protection between traffic and pedestrians. So you've got, up on the top left, you've got a planting strip with trees and lawn. On the top right, the road is right next to the sidewalk, but there's a bike lane. So the bike lane provides space. There could be parked cars that provide space. So there's ways of doing that depending on what the context is. As long as getting people away from where the vehicle are actually going by really provides more protection and more comfort for pedestrians. This is an example of just, you've kind of got a large paved area where it's kind of not really, so it's a large driveway, it's just not a very well-defined area for pedestrians to go, but you can see by doctoring it up a little bit, with a little simulation, you put some planting in, you can better clarify where pedestrians would be and where they separate from vehicles. So you can see there's a bike lane, bike racks over there, and some landscaping, and just ways of visually separating and providing some separation. This is an enhanced crosswalk, one that the markings really stand out much more than the typical crosswalk design. This is less of an issue in this area. It shows the different types of crosswalk markings, and the one on the bottom, the longitudinal marking, is mostly what you have along 20, which are more easily seen than the ones that just have the 2 parallel lines. So that's a positive for sure. On the left, there's a pedestrian sign. It's an enhanced pedestrian sign, so you got the brightly colored signs more easily visible. There's also lights on there you can't see very easily. I think that'll be on another slide. On the top right, there's a median island and some signs that would be in the middle of the street, and then you've got a marked crosswalk, again, something that visually highlights where the crosswalk area is. So here's this is an example of the one on the bottom. It's called a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Yeah. Very catchy name, RRFB. So it's flashing lights. We've got the crosswalk signs. Just for my own personal use, I find that people actually yield quite a bit more frequently when they're there. Other option on the top, they have the in-roadway warning lights where you just have lights lighting the crosswalk. Okay, this is something, this is kind of a newer device known as a hawk signal. And what this is, it looks sort of like a traffic light, but the light just, it's completely off as long as there are no pedestrians there and vehicles just travel through normally. What you do is there's a push button as a pedestrian goes there. The diagram on the bottom left shows the sequence of the light, and basically the push button ultimately leads to a red signal which stops the traffic, pedestrians can cross, and then it goes back again. But if there are no pedestrians there, it doesn't affect traffic at all.
So these are in California?
There are some. They're relatively new, but Caltrans has even started putting some of them on their facilities. That's much even more recently. Crossing islands, I think especially where you're talking about pedestrians trying to find a way across a busy, wide street, this is a way to provide a little more protection. You've got an island in the middle, so you can cross one piece at a time, stop and wait for the vehicles, cross again. It makes you a little more visible. You're standing out. You've got protection by a curb. So that's if you have that space available. This is a question. You know, Steve mentioned Caltrans has to sign off on things, and generally they've been very wary about putting things like this on a state roadway because where they have a raised structure, they have concerns about liability. Doesn't mean we shouldn't raise the issue and make any recommendations, but just want to keep that in mind that Caltrans has certain things that they look at as being acceptable or that they have questions about.
Would they do, like, let's try this?
Remains PC. Another example, rather than putting something in the middle of the roadway, you can put something on the sidewalk and extend the curb out into the street. So what's nice is it shortens the crossing distance. And it makes pedestrians more visible before they enter the roadway. They're out closer to where the drivers are looking and can more easily see them. It's also a place to put, here's an illustration of what that looks like. You can see how the crossing distance narrowed from 58 to 32 feet, but it still kept the same number of travel lanes going through. And how it affects the visibility where drivers can more easily see pedestrians there than they would if they were set back another 10 feet from that point. Lighting, I think it sounds like everyone is very excited about the idea of having lighting, so I probably don't need to belabor this one. Bike improvements, we mentioned before that the bike lanes are put in over in Clear Lake Oaks. A lot of Highway 20 does have shoulders, and so there may be sufficient space for bike lanes, but it's not currently designated as bike lanes. Here's examples where it's not just the bike lanes, but
some of those shoulders are a bit rough for bicycles.
Right, yeah, it's not something that's a bike lane now, but whether there's space there, it's possible. This is an example of what they call a buffered bike lane, so it has additional striping to separate where the bicyclists are from the traffic. Because if you just have a single stripe, bicyclists can be in the bike lane, but still be very close to where the traffic is. It provides a little more comfort. This is another facility with even more separation. You've got a landscape section between there, and that's what's known as a protected bikeway or a cycle track. Here you have a two-way cycle track, so if you really have a lot of space available, that's basically like having a trail right next to your road. Then there were some other treatments. Again, this is something more recently that's been used. This kind of green painting, green marking on the pavement, which on the top left you can see it shows where vehicles would be moving over to make a right turn and they have to cross over the bike lane. This highlights that they should expect to see bicyclists coming through there. And here you can see what that does in terms of the entire road. And not only does it provide that designated space and make bicyclists more obvious, but it does visually narrow that roadway. So it's again something that helps to guide the way that drivers look at the road. Something else not quite as directly related to traffic, but it definitely has an impact, is what they call a gateway treatment. So there are signs coming in the communities here, but you can see what it looks like when you have something like in Willits, where it sends a message that, hey, you're entering a populated downtown area, you're expecting a lot of activity, is kind of a warning sign. Pedestrian scale lighting. So there's vehicle lighting, which is much higher up, and pedestrian lighting really caters more to showing where pedestrians are and making them more visible. And then some other things, I think I talked to someone who was talking about trees before, and so trees, landscaping, green infrastructure, helping to reduce stormwater runoff, so there's opportunities to combine, especially with something like curb extensions, where you're adding the extension out into the street, it gives you a space to put in some new plantings. Trees and these kinds of things can also visually impact the way people see the road. To the degree that drivers don't see like they're driving down a runway, it makes it seem more like a neighborhood, more like a community, and they're hopefully less inclined to be speeding through. Bike parking is another thing to think about. If we're adding bike facilities, people need to be able to park their bike when they get somewhere. We have to get an inventory of what's around, but that's something that's pretty inexpensive and easy to add in.
I have one question for you. Sure. On the Nice Lucerne cutoff on Highway 20, when they get the Nice cutoff, going from there to Buffalo, there's absolutely no lighting in there. And we've had a lot of people lose their life between the Thompson Casino and the Running Creek. Are you guys thinking about putting lights on that corridor? So there's a lot of people that walk that corridor daytime and nighttime. And are you guys thinking about putting lights in there?
Well, I think the area you're talking about is
Upper Lake.
I know. I think we're back to the issue. It's not part of our study, that section of the highway. We'll certainly be talking with staff about this issue.
Not just there too, but when you come out of Lucerne, you're gonna head towards the Oaks and into Glen Haven. It's the same thing. People use the highway and they're walking on the highway, they're riding their bikes. It can be at night and there's no lights.
Right. You know, it sounds like lighting is an issue in this area.
If you're gonna put lights on that, to me, I think you should have lights from Upper Lake all the way to where it goes.
Can I make a suggestion? If you're gonna do the study, include past the school, because from the past the school to the Second Riviera, I think it's like a speedway there. They'll pick up 60, 65 and head on out of town. So.
Okay. So that was the end of our presentation of just ideas. Like I said, now is really if you have any, we're going to kind of conclude with this schedule again. So why don't we wrap up and then we can go through any final questions.
Will you take a question on your what you can say so far?
I'm going to go through the chair and let me, how about if I finish? We have like 5 more slides. And then if you like, we can, you want me to take questions?
Sure.
Okay. So again, just go back a second. So as I said before, we're going to be coming back in September, but we're really looking for input. We got a lot of good input so far tonight. I think your questions, which will follow, will give us a little bit more. And then the website, which I'm going to show here in a second, will be another vehicle for you to give us even more comments. Next. So that website again is shown here, but if you can provide your comments, we're looking for you to ask. We're asking questions like, what are the challenges crossing the street? What intersections are difficult to cross the street? Where is it difficult to ride the bike? We've kind of heard some things already, but that website will give you a way to show where that's happening. Here's the website again. By the way, if anybody would like a copy of the presentation, I will put some cards out. You can email me. We'll email you a PDF of the presentation. That way you'll also get the link of where that is. Next. So again, on the top right of that website, you're going to see provide comments, describe a location, and I think if they, you want to choose?
Yeah, so the up on the top it just says how to provide comments. What it does is it directs you over on the left side. There's a little thing in that blue. It says add comment, and basically what you do is you click on there, and it'll prompt you with a window which says a problem for biking, a problem for walking, or a place that I want to be able to walk or bike to. So maybe you say, oh, I want to be able to go to the park or the market, and so you can put down a marker, and then can't really see it very well here, but those are little markers I put down, and I have the cursor hovering over one of the marks, and it shows what the comment was that you typed in. So it might say, and it gives you a couple of options. You can say, oh, vehicles aren't yielding to pedestrians here, or it gives you an other, and you can write whatever comment you want to pass along. The other thing that's kind of nice about this website is if other people have written comments, you can see what they are, and you can say thumbs up or thumbs down. So it's not, so other people might give you ideas and say, yeah, I forgot about that. but it's good for us to hear whether people agree or disagree with things that are showing up.
All right, so that's our presentation. Our goal tonight was not to give you, answers. Tonight since it's our first workshop, was really sort of fact-finding. We wanted to hear from you. We kind of showed you some ideas that we're going to probably get into and you're going to hear more about next time. So at this point, should I go ahead and take questions?
If anybody has questions.
Okay, questions or if you want to just tell us something, now's the time. Yes.
I was on that 2005 committee, so the common, and there was a beautiful map. I still have it somewhere in my stuff. It's a beautiful map, and it's already done. Do you have that still on PDF or something?
Yeah, we have.
Cobblestones and
Yeah, the previous study focused more on beautification, landscaping, urban design issues. There were some. Yeah, there was some ideas that we will get into, although this is more sort of traffic elements. We're not going to show the level of detail of landscaping. We may recommend some. Yes, yeah. So we will put a copy of those, probably that as part of the report as documentation of what happened before.
I don't really care about, I love that beautification, I think it was a lot of money, but it shows how you can make the road smaller.
Right.
I think the biggest problem is it's way too big.
Yeah.
For people to cross.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I make a suggestion.
Please.
We're from Washington originally, and there's an area of Washington that's very similar to this community. And you have two types of traffic here. You have the big trucks and the people headed west, and then you have the local people. And if you be more proactive and separate those two pieces of traffic, we have a place in Washington on the Hood Canal, very similar. You've got Union City down here and Purdy here and a big park here. And they took the road and put it up on the hill with access. And the people down here were a little afraid they'd lose business. But with growth, they didn't lose business, they've grown. But the people that want to travel straight were traveling to points. You've had a big fire up here, and I don't know if you ever do any studies on bypass roads, but I would suggest that be done.
My immediate reaction is our effort is not to necessarily to identify a bypass road and funding for that. We're going to mention it in the report. Our charge is, given the traffic that's here and the issues that are here, what can be done to improve things. That I agree that is a good solution, but that's not the direction we've been given to find a bypass route.
I might add as well is that Highway 20 is known as, or most of Highway 20 at least, except for the North Shore area, is known as this principal arterial corridor. So it's one of the main thoroughfares north of the Bay Area that gets you from Highway 5 over to Highway 101. The other was up in Humboldt County, Redding. But in any case, Highway 20 is one of the only ways across. And so the route actually goes Highway 20
And the long-term vision is to use the southern part of the lake, like going down 53, 29 and back up, connecting up to Upper Lake and then further on the west on Highway 20. And it's kind of a hand-in-hand phasing here of trying to slow the traffic down on the North Shore, trying to widen, and there's already projects that are trying to widen and make the Highway 29 safer and more passing lanes for truck traffic, to use that route, stay off of the North Shore, and, like I said, the traffic calming will make it less attractive for traffic that wants to go across. But for people who want to visit or for locals, it would be a lot nicer to have slower traffic. And then, as you improve the southern route, it'd be more attractive for more cars. You can't force people to use that, but you could give them incentives by, to make it nicer and more.
If it was really slow on Highway 20,
Correct.
29 might look more.
And that's a component of this project, is like I said, the long-term, long-range vision, that's what we're paying for.
Okay, next, sir.
Yeah, one of the things I want to make sure to get in is that the issues that I've heard a lot, maybe people here will agree, that is that we get a lot of passage in the turn lane. And turn lane passage doesn't make very livable for the people in the town. We got folks that are driving around. Now, in my conversations with, and what I've noted to Caltrans is that they have a line of sight that actually makes it advantageous to the driver when he can see everybody coming to actually use that turn lane. So why can't you just truncate that line of sight? And so they say they don't want to put any islands in the center so that they don't have a loss of ability to turn into any of the property. But if you were to look at the line of sight for the entire 18 miles, you'll see about 8 or 9 miles of it, of the turn lane area, that actually is line of sight. So there's a lot of line of sight and a lot of ability for those drivers to use that as a turn lane, or a passing. So the passing into turn lane is a big deal. So that's what I've been told for the last 4 years, and I've reported that, and they haven't done much to it. I really like that. I don't know that it's a safety issue, but it's a livability issue for those folks in those towns.
No, the passing the turn lane is a safety issue. We've heard it even before we came tonight. If there are specific areas you see that happening, the website to mark those, it would be great. We are going to address it either way, have some discussions with Caltrans. The raised median issue is one way to do that. Although it's in my experience, it's always been a challenge with Caltrans to do that. I think there are ways to do it and still maintain access to properties, especially if you think about T intersections where you use that to turn left to go into town. There is nowhere to turn because the lake's there for the other way. So maybe that's where you put a raised median. And then as we've shown, you can use that raised median to help people cross the street. So that is one strategy that we'd like to pursue. It's a matter of, is Caltrans willing to go that direction as well? So
One more point about that is the passing lanes, because traffic's being slowed down. She mentioned the through traffic. They get slowed down and they want to get by, and there's hardly any place for them to get by. In fact, what Caltrans has done is they've kept them from passing by putting in the turn circles, and they're going to add one more. So that makes the passing opportunities only in the turn lanes. So if there were more passing opportunities in a safe area, I think that would help out.
Okay.
And on the negative side, if you keep letting trucks use that turn lane for loading and unloading, then they can't pass anyway. That's been happening more and more frequently.
Okay. I think you're next.
Okay, so when we get to the end of the study and Caltrans is going to do good things for us, will we have any input over options? For instance, if we have a certain character in our community, I don't mean a person, I mean aura, and they're going to do better lighting. Do we have a chance to say what kind of look we want in the lighting, or do we have to have what they have like down in Oaks, which is industrial? And then we have beautiful Upper Lake over there. That is beautiful.
Yeah, I would say this process is going to make recommendations of types of facilities, lighting, crosswalk improvements. And then should they move forward, there would probably be a design phase where the community would be given some opportunity on sort of choosing a style. That's not going to happen as part of this phase, but thank you. Did you have a?
No, I just want to make sure you got it.
Okay. Back there, yes.
I witnessed an accident and heard it this way. A guy was standing by across the street, he was shattered. And the first car saw him stop. The guy back obviously didn't stop in time. And the accident occurred. But I've often gone along and seen a person on the side, and not quite sure if they're going to cross or not. So if you have a crosswalk, there should be a little line where the person stands in the line, you can see traffic both directions, traffic can see him, so they can stop. Where a person just happy to waiting for a friend is different. There seems to be, at least as I go up, I don't always guess the guy that cross or not. So, because crosswalks are a main part of it.
Yeah. Remember we showed those curb extensions to shorten the crossing distance is a good way to, the pedestrian, rather than standing here, now you're standing here waiting to cross. That's sort of one strategy.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that depends on the location. If it's right on the corner, it's tough to tow a boat around one of those extensions. It sticks out into the street.
That's true. There's always trade-offs.
Good point. We've got a lot of boaters around here.
Okay. Yes.
In your study, 85 percentile, if 30% of the trucks involved in that traffic are doing 15 to 20 miles and lower than the speed limit, that would affect the study, correct?
When the speed surveys are done, it's a random sampling of all traffic at that point. It's not just focusing on vehicles or trucks, but all traffic on a random basis.
I commuted this corridor, and I started in the Oaks and got behind a truck. And they do 10 to 20 miles below the speed limit, and I'm stuck behind them. They don't use the turnouts like the sign said. So there are signs that all through this corridor that say use turnouts to allow for slower traffic, use turnouts to allow passing. They don't stop in the turnout, they just drive right by it. And you're stuck, for me it's 20, 25 minutes. You're stuck behind a truck doing slower than the speed limit. I understand this, we want to go slower through the communities, but in that area where there's no pedestrian traffic currently, it's just, I believe it adds to frustration of cars and drivers.
Okay. We'll note that, our work is focused on the main street areas. The community is not in between, but I think your point is well taken that what's happening between communities affects what then the driving happens. So good point. Other comments, questions? All right.
Sorry about that. Thank you for coming. We'll go ahead and continue with the last meeting for Lucerne. And I do have copies of the agenda there if anybody would like to read along with us. So first I want to do the presentation. Oh wait, we did that. First I want to bring in the subcommittee reports and recommendations. The subcommittee to draft petition in support of the LATH resolution A0001. And I also have copies of that on the table as well. Subcommittee met And this is what the petition is that we read, that we came up with. Summary, we, the undersigned residents of Lucerne, California, urge the Board of Supervisors of the County of Lake to take action in support of and in accordance with the Lucerne Area Town Hall Resolution A0001, which seeks for the proceeds of the sale of the Lucerne Hotel to be reinvested in Lucerne. We feel that it would greatly benefit the county to improve the economic engine of Lucerne. We urge that the proceeds be reinvested specifically in Lucerne as a redevelopment funds that paid for the purchase of Lucerne Hotel was paid for through tax increment funds. And please see the full text of the last resolution, and it is on the table too, and we will attach it to the petition. So this is something that we're in the middle of considering. And so, are there any public input or comments?
Yeah, just a comment about the area where the taxes came from. It wasn't just Lucerne. The area district was the North Shore. So if you approve it to the North Shore and then say you want to have projects here in Lucerne, I think they'd be more likely to agree with you on that.
Okay. It's noted. Thank you, Jim. Go ahead, Lourdes.
Yeah, are we anticipating having members of the community sign this petition, or is it just going to go in from the town hall?
No, we did discuss it. If it will go in out to the community to sign.
And I believe that right now it's scheduled for June 5th from the Board of Supervisors with Lucerne Harbor. So,
and this petition will be presented to the Board of Supervisors, I think it's the 5th or the 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
so should not the petition be done by then and handed in with
That
it?
is correct.
And on that, on the petition that people are signing, or at the table or whatever it is, a little reminder to go to the Board of Supervisors on the 5th in order to
Yes.
support it.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so any other public comments? Okay, thank you. The next subcommittee to draft petition urging SDWSRF loan forgiveness. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I missed this part. So we need to consider the petition that I just read, requesting forgiveness. Yeah. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So can we make a motion with the changes that Jim suggested?
We can.
You want me to make a motion that we request forgiveness?
Well, I know, you said that you wanted the money from the North Shore, correct?
Yeah. I'd like to see someone make a motion regarding this on the, of the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. I don't know, we need to get a new microphone. The next,
Could be the best.
could be. The next petition urging, no. This was the petition to urge the SDWSRF loan forgiveness. And this has to do with the water. And this is what we had a subcommittee, and this is the petition that we came up with. Summary, people of Lucerne seek loan forgiveness. of SDWSRF loan. We, the undersigned residents of Lucerne, California, urge the governor of the state of California to forgive the SDWSRF loan that was granted to California Water Service Company by the California State Water Resource Control Board for the purpose of building and improvements to a water plant in Lucerne. Lucerne in Lake County is an unincorporated community of approximately 1,100 water connections and is designated severely disadvantaged with one of the highest water rates in the state. Forgiveness of the SRF loan would relieve a long-term economic burden from Lucerne's water ratepayers. The petition is agreed upon by the following signatures, and this also will go out to the community as well.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt.
Can I, all in favor? Motion passed.
The next item,
The next petition or item on the agenda was subcommittee to pursue programs like CC4C to be implemented in Lucerne, and I'm going to hand that over to John.
So I chaired this meeting, but it didn't happen. There were no attendants. Anthony had said he's going to come, but didn't. Yes, Derek.
John, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say that Kevin McCusker with Cal Water has been in communication with you with all the documents that you need.
Oh, great.
And he says that he'd be more than happy to meet whenever you guys want to firm up whatever communication you need to the government, to local government.
So we're talking about loan forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
the chair recognizes that, and I did get an email, so thank you.
Any supporting activity that you need, he's there. He's your guy.
Excellent.
Communicate with. Okay.
Thank you, Derek. We don't have a report. The meeting was unattended and canceled, which means it's tabled, and we have to determine what to do next with that, if anything at all.
Thank you, John. The next item on the agenda were consideration updates to the bylaws. And I don't know if everybody knows what our bylaws are. They are on the website. And I pulled them up, and these were the two considerations so far. I'm just going to read them out. Okay. The LAF bylaws are the principal governing document for the Lucerne Area Town Hall. In 2019, Council has identified areas for improvement in the bylaws to correct errors and possible redundancies codified in the standing bylaws. LAF member oversight and participation are invited to create a more inclusive group approach for stakeholders in our primary government document. The proposed changes are designed to make corrections and remove confusion about the scope of LAF. Key takeaways from the current bylaws for updated consideration include the bylaws place LAF between Cal Water customers and the complaint process. This appears to be potentially filtered public involvement and overlook that since LAF exists to provide advice to the Board of Supervisors, it already has the ability to perform that role, which makes the paragraph redundant. The paragraph also tasks LAF with preparing reports on the state of water quality, which is beyond the ability and expertise of LAF. The second item on the bylaws, on the sheet for the bylaws, is the rotating vice chair at each meeting. The prescribed rotation has not been the historic practice of LAF. The current bylaws also task the vice chair with preparation and dissemination of the agendas, which imposes a confusing and awkward practice which has not been followed previously. So these are just two amendments to the bylaws that were originally created by a subcommittee before this current board has had a chance to participate and look over and make additional changes. So What I'm asking is are there any comments from go ahead, Lourdes.
Yeah, I understand the 2 comments that are there, the 2 changes. But I think there are lots of things in existing bylaws that need to be revisited.
The chair recognizes that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
Are those 2 comments that you read available on the website?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Anthony.
And these 2 are the new, this is the adjustments that we're proposing, right?
There are just 2 adjustments.
Those are 2 suggestions.
Yeah, two suggestions. Go ahead, Gordon.
So is there room for other suggestions, or?
There is. I'd like to make a proposal that we create another subcommittee for the bylaws. And I have a tentative date of June, either May 30th or June. It's a Thursday. I wrote it down. June 6th. I like this. Go ahead.
I just want to let you know about the bylaws.
Yes.
Since I wrote them. When I did write these, there were purposes at the time, and no one knew enough about running the whole town hall to actually make comment at that time. So I want to just give you license. Yes, there's plenty of room for you to adjust it for the way you want to do business, and that's what this was all about. So don't feel like you're cutting into anybody's turf or anything. At the time, no one was making any comments.
I appreciate that. I like that gives us 2 weeks for public to either send information to John on our website.
Not to me, but to Lucerne
Yeah.
townhall@gmail.com.
Yes.
That way we can take written commentary as opposed to having a small group decide what the bylaws become.
And you mentioned one part about it, that was the water. Because there was a lot of water quality issue, I wanted the water quality issues to come to a central location so I could get them documented, and then I could push against the loan to say, look, they haven't taken care of the water quality, and we need to have enough money in this town in order to upgrade the operations of the plant, so forgive the loans so that that money can be used for those, and also reduce the rate. And so that was the strategy at the time, but no one wanted to actually be identified as complaining because they felt uncomfortable with that, and so that's kind of an obsolete issue for my life.
I can appreciate that.
Okay, so that's the way it was. Just want to give you the license there.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
When we do go through and review our bylaws, I think it should be an open forum and not a closed with only a few people to look at the bylaws and make our changes so that the public can see what we're trying to do for Lucerne and have it open to the public. And not just a few people.
Yeah, so I think we should have.
It should be open to just like the town meeting.
Okay. Go ahead, Lourdes.
Possibly we could have like a meeting before the town meeting, like today, although it kind of went out of control. But, if we had it at 6:30 or something like that.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking. That was my suggestion. We could take the public comments and then we could meet and then just bring forth our suggestions and bring it open to the public, to the meeting.
Because
So,
there's no rush to do it.
No.
So we
No.
have to take our time and do it well.
right. That's my recommendation. Are we okay with that? Yeah. I'm going to table the bylaws and then we'll go ahead and take the public comments. And I would really like to have the subcommittee meet, like you said, Lourdes, and then present the presentation to the public and work it out that way and pass the bylaws. Go ahead.
No, I would just say, if we could also have, I know we're trying to move away from paper copies, but if we could bring paper copies of the proposed bylaws like we did here, I think that would be great for people who don't have access to computers. So,
I hear you. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay. Too many papers, see, I should have read all these papers. And the last thing, and this is,
What are we gonna do? I mean, is it the next meeting, we're going ahead of time, or?
I think we'll go ahead and take those 2 weeks, and June 6th will be this 2-week deadline for the subcommittee on the bylaws. So,
To meet or?
to meet, present, talk, and then have it at our meeting, at our next meeting as Kevin, a working meeting.
So what time on the 6th?
What time's good for you?
Well, not tonight. I already have meetings on the night.
Okay. All right. Is 12 o'clock good for you?
Sure, anytime before 5.
Okay. Yeah, June 6th at 12 o'clock. Okay. We'll have it at Wonderland Sweet Shop on Highway 20. Please forgive me, I skipped number 8, and that is consider that becoming a party to the action of CPUC proceeding to give formal input and advocacy for Lucerne water ratepayers. So I think that's sort of what Jim was trying to discuss earlier when, he was having the Lucerne Town Hall, sort of be an advocate for the residents here and the ratepayers. So we'd like to we'd like to consider LAF becoming a party of the action to the CPUC proceedings to give formal input from advocacy of Lucerne water ratepayers. Part of being, take part of the action to advocate, my understanding, for Lucerne water. So any public comments or questions from anybody? Go ahead.
So I missed the last 2 meetings, but there was discussion before I missed those meetings about capital projects that are in the current infrastructure improvement plan. And if LAF wanted to give comments regarding those projects, like activated carbon, and the discussion was whether you want to get involved and communicate to the PUC that as a group, as a community, you want those projects to move forward. And it'll have little to no impact on rates. And I just wanted to say, if that is what you want to do, Kevin McCusker knows the process and can help the group do that.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, the agenda item is to give us standing.
Right, is to help advocate for the community here.
Yeah. And another question is, after that agenda item, are you going to discuss Cal Water after that?
It's not on this. It's not on this agenda. No.
Okay. Right.
So, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I would move to direct LAF to become a member, become a part of the action of the CPUC proceed rate case hearing to give formal input from an advocacy for Lucerne water ratepayers.
Okay. All in favor? The motion passed?
I did.
Yeah. And my last, it's not on here, but I would like to ask if anybody, if you would like to have something on next month's agenda, please come forward now. Go ahead, sir.
Could you have an update on the clinic takeover by Adventist Health? Where does that stand these days?
You talking about the clinic over here Dr. Bob's old clinic or his clinic. He wanted to have an update on something like that, so.
Can I address that? I just spoke with Russ Purdock yesterday about exactly that, and he was surprised that it's already in the community. And so we're trying to get some representative from Adventist to be here at the next meeting to discuss exactly that.
Oh, okay.
So the answer is yes. And we've already talked to those guys.
So somehow I thought it was already going to be involved a lot.
Well, it's not on this agenda because the conversation only came up yesterday.
So the next month's meeting, they plan on having it, right?
If we can have it, if we can get them to commit,
Okay.
it'll be on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any agenda items they'd like? Go ahead, sir.
I don't have an item, but one more comment before I leave.
Sure.
Sorry to keep interrupting.
Okay.
I think that the participation is has to be set by the mid-June, I believe. I forget what the date is. So have someone from LAF get a hold of Kevin McCusker as quickly as possible in order to become a party to the PEC here.
Okay, I think Kurt is already a part of that because I got some emails from him today.
I just didn't want to go without saying that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
No one missed the deadline. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Have a good evening.
Anybody else have any public comments or like to say anything on the agenda? Kevin, Danny, John?
I didn't know if you wanted me to just give an update or something like that, or just a couple things, because I know that, a couple, just like, and I'm gonna stand this way, because I notice that when people go this way, it turns off, so. Anyhow, first, we're gonna be able to, I've turned in the application or the contract for Lucerne Alpine Senior Center to be paid for. We're working, the treasurer for Lucerne Alpine Senior Center and the administration from the county is talking about, we're not talking about it, but they're working on getting it paid for so we don't have to worry about moving or anything like that. There won't be no more issues with them asking us about, the senior center being paid for, so that way that's a stress reliever right there. The second thing we have going is training. It'll be around the lake training for all the town halls, including Middletown. So they're working on that to be late July, early August timeframe for all the town halls to be able to come together and conduct a training. They're trying to facilitate it so that everyone can reach it. So I don't know if you have a recommendation, please let me know. They're talking like Kelseyville or Lakeport or something like that, or Lower Lake. So if you have a recommendation, as the town together, the town council, let me know so I can give them. Well, Lucerne wants it here, Upper Lake wants it here, so I can give them that. Another thing too, Anita, the county council is willing to come and do training for the council on your own, just with her and the council. We've had this before, like when I was on planning commission, she did one just solely for us. And so you guys just need to set a date and she'll come forward and do that. And if you want, what we can do is an hour before, maybe we do that, an hour before our next meeting, maybe we do that so that way it's done ahead of time and we just kind of knock that out. She's willing to come and do that beforehand so that everyone's on the same page. You can ask any question about, it's mainly for Brown Act and all that other stuff, so that way we can get that knocked out and we can kind of have that training going. So, yeah, so I just wanted to make sure you all knew that.
Is that training just for members of the boards or for
Well, if the board meets, then it has to be a public meeting.
It would probably be public. I think you would be allowed to come to that. I know that when we had it for the planning commission, people were allowed to be there if they wanted to. So yes, it would be open to the public. And speaking of open to the public, I know that you and I were talking about something very important because I heard it talked about also on the agenda was the budget and the dredging of the harbor, the docks, and that taking place June 5th on the agenda. It's already in the draft budget as it is for everything that we've asked for here. And so just reminding everyone that also there is an actual Board of Supervisors meeting on the 4th too. So it may behoove maybe somebody that can't be there for the 5th and 6th to come public input that day or whatever on the 4th and say, hey, or any day before to come and say, hey, this is what I'd like to see happen. Because then at least they get to hear it. And the more they hear it, the more it might help with our plight to getting that done. But I think we have a good chance. I'm optimistic, And the 5th is the main day. I wanted to dial in on a time so that you guys can know to come around a certain time. But then again, you know, I may not know exactly, but I'm going to try to get that dialed in for you so you can know exactly what time. Because some people have schedules, and I get that. But it's imperative that we have the support. So yeah, I just wanted to.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in that respect, you have a good feeling it's going to happen. So that means that we're somewhere along the way in the permitting process, because that can take years.
Oh, I'm just talking about the budget in general. The permitting process, yeah, I don't see an issue with it though, because I mean, as long as we have the budget for it, I'm optimistic that we can get it done regardless. I don't know when the last time it's been done, and I know that they talked about studies. I'm trying to get away from that because I don't want to stall it any longer, if that makes any sense. I want to try to get it done, or get it at least slided for the budget, so that way there's no other loophole we have to jump through, and then we're like, it doesn't happen, and then everyone here has even more reason to be upset, and I don't want that, that's for sure. So, but I
link that management and the state.
Yes, yeah. There's that. You know,
That Harvard's never been done since they built it.
No, it was dredged like 10 years ago.
Was it? Well, we'll have to look at how long that took, or what they had to use to get through that, the permits and whatnot, and see where we're at with timeline.
Stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, there's also another issue. I mean, it just not to get too far off subject, but it is somewhat similar. Is there was a gentleman that owned a RV park, and then had to do something with because he had a dock and a pier. They wanted to do a study, and he was just so frustrated, and that was holding up one of his projects, another situation like that. And it's something that was more newer, that came to fruition later. And it's like, so, but yeah, that's a good question though. And actually, I'm going to look into that too. So that way you have a better timeline, and it's not just, well, we got it approved, and if it gets approved on the budget, but then it's still going to take how long? That's a frustrating thing. That's one thing that I want to try to get out of the way is any other type of like nuances that come after the fact or whatever, and it's like, yeah, we got the budget, but then at the same time, it's still not done, and then you're like, I thought it was getting done, and then that wouldn't be helpful. So, yeah. So again, thank you. And if there's any other questions that I can answer, I'm glad to.
Actually, I have an agenda item I wanted to propose, and that's that maybe we could discuss the conditions of the piers in Lucerne, and how we might have some influence over the counties, and you have something done about that.
That's good.
Because those are a real eyesore.
It is, and actually, I was on the radio last week, and that was a call-in question. And actually, yeah, and I had talked to the person that I had asked the question, and then I went to Water Resources, who heads that, or would deal with that. So that would be a good one. Maybe I can get him to come and talk to us about what he needs in order to get those resolved. Because it is Dave Cowan. Yeah. And so but that is an issue. That they're broke, and you never know what not only the eyesores, but then again, it's like it could be dangerous to not just wildlife, but people in general, boating, all that stuff.
I found a really good use for them though. As they wash up on the beach, I turn them into these cute little rural signs. I got a whole pier, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a good one though. If you tried them, and I can ask him to come, he'd be glad to.
So Dave
Cowan. Yes. All right.
Thank you. All right, thank you everybody for staying so late. I appreciate it. And go ahead, sir.
Did anybody ever talk to anybody about trying to put speed bumps here on Country Club?
I talked to them when I talked to them on the phone, and I gave them, the suggestions from the community that I heard, and they said the money wasn't really for that, but that they'll mark down my comment, because the more people that make comments about it, the more that we might get something done. So
maybe we could do a petition.
I think maybe if you go onto the website, and if everybody puts in their, I'm sure there might be a comment section, and add that, because like he said to me, even though the money wasn't delegated to that specific area, if we make enough noise, we could maybe accomplish something. Those were his words in a roundabout way. So it's worth the effort, I think. From the W-Trans.
Well, no.
The grant money.
For this road right here, you might be able to also, there's a complaint form that's online, and one thing, I've gotten like 5 or 6 of them just this last week. And we've submit them, and the department head is obligated to answer that. So the more that go into him, I know it's frustrating because sometimes they weren't getting addressed when it came to code enforcement, but I had another one for a tax collector situation, and we sent it in. So that may be another way too, is just to get the complaint forms in about the roads here, this road, because it's a county road, and that way it would go straight to that department head. And he's usually on it about either answering or finding solutions to some of those issues as well. So that may be another way. And then I know not a lot of people like taxes, and I get it too, but some people talked about benefit zones. One group at Blue Lakes was talking about trying to do one out there because some of their roads were like really just havoc, but I don't think it would be a priority because they're on the backside of the Blue Lakes, so they were talking about, well, maybe we can do our own benefit zone. And, I don't know if they're planning on doing it yet, but that's also another option. But
Something to look into,
But
Because my arm is getting so sore from throwing rocks at it.
With that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.